Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Indian section, I welcome you all to our Friday evening study class. Before starting, let's join together in the universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Om Shanti. So today we continue with our last set of letters, second last set of letters, letters 77 to 81, with Vibhaji, who doesn't need any introduction, except to say that we all really look forward to her and the way she explains it, the clarity and beauty. So most welcome, Vibhaji.
Thank you so much, Vimalji, and namaste and good evening to all our participants. Today, we will be studying these letters numbers 71 to 81 from Masters of Wisdom Series 2. And this is the last set. After that, there is just one more letter in this set, letter 82, which will be taken up in the next session. So I'll just share my slides. Okay. So these letters from 77 to 81, they are very straightforward and very simple. They don't require much of comments. And out of these letters, two of them, they are in Adyar, and the rest, they were copied from various other sources. Okay, all that is mentioned in the footnote of each letter, and we will go through the footnote also. So we go to the first letter, letter number 77. Now, this letter is received either in 1881 or 1882. It was written by Mahatma K.H. to Mr. Sorabji J. Padshaw. This Mr. Sorabji, he was the editor of the Indian Spectator, and he accompanied the founders, that is Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott, to Ceylon on their first trip, which was sometime in May 1880. Okay, he can be seen with Madame Blavatsky in the adjoining photo. Now, after a few years, Mr. Sorabji, he lost all interest in the society. So he was probably no longer associated with the society. And the footnote also states that this letter was quoted in the defense of HPB issued by the General Council of the TS in 1885. Now, see, the letter was either received in 1881 or 1882, and it is quoted in 1885 by the General Council when they were defending HPB. They were defending her against the false accusation charges leveled by the Coulombs. That was the Coulomb conspiracy. And the conspiracy was mainly that she would produce fraudulent phenomena. The letters were actually written by her, but she said that they are written by the masters. So this kind of false accusations, they were there. And this current letter, it served as evidence that the letters were being sent not only to Madame Blavatsky but to other people also, one of them being Mr. Sorabji J. Padshaw. Okay, so this letter served as a evidence and it was quoted by the General Council at that time, who were the member of who they were defending HPB. So that is mentioned in the footnote. Now let us see what Mahatma mentions in this letter to Sorabji Padshaw. He says, your spirit is undoubtedly most closely akin to and largely vivified by that of poetry, and your intellectual instincts pierce easily into all the mysteries and abysses of nature, often giving a beautiful form, verity, meaning truth, and harmony to your verse, as far as I am able to judge of English poetry. So Mahatma K.H. had also had a very good Western education and he was able to appreciate the English poetry. He says, now these qualities of creative arts, that is poetry, and any other creative art, these qualities, they belong primarily to the mental plane, especially to the higher mental, which is the plane of abstract thought. Okay. And this higher mental plane, it acts as a bridge to the Buddhic plane. Buddhic plane is the plane of intuition. And although such artistic expressions, they can also be influenced by lower mental or astral levels. Okay. But true poetic creativity, it is actually a transmission of the spiritual truths which come from the higher realm, which come from the Buddhic plane, the plane of intuition, and they are transmitted through the manas. So, through the higher manas, they are transmitted. So, that is true poetry, true creativity. And Mahatma KH, he is able to discern that same beauty, truth, and harmony in Sorabji Padshah's poetry. That is why he has made this comment. He says further that a true seer is always a poet, and a poet can never be a true one unless he is in perfect unity with occult nature. So, he's saying a true seer is in perfect unity with occult nature. Occult nature is that which is generally hidden from the eye of flesh, not with physical eyes. So, it is hidden from the eye of flesh, but it is visible to the spiritual eye. That is occult nature. And the true seer, he is a spiritually advanced being. So his elevated consciousness is able to perceive the higher worlds, the hidden worlds of divine energies in nature. He is able to perceive it. But we know that language is a barrier. What we see or what we perceive in higher worlds, it cannot be expressed easily through language. Language falls short to communicate the knowledge and the accompanying love, joy, whatever is experienced of those hidden worlds. Okay, language is unable to communicate, and therefore that expression, it streams forth through the mind of a seer in the form of poems, in the form of songs, or even shloks. Okay, so it gets expressed mostly in symbols and allegories through these poems and through songs. We have seen that even in Indian this thing, in our in the bhakti movement, the poets, the saints, they have composed so many bhajans. They have composed, for example, Meera ke Pad, the dohe of Shri Kabir Das, Tulsi Das. We know the abhang of Sant Jnaneshwar, Sant Tukaram. So they are all in poetic form, but they are the spiritual truths which have come from the higher planes. So that is a true seer who is in perfect unity with occult nature. And this seer, he is truly a creator by right of his spiritual revelation, as a great Danish poet expresses it, because he is seeing the truths through his spiritual eye of the higher planes. And that is why he is able to create this poetry. Further, Mahatmaji has written that I was anxious, therefore you should learn how far you had succeeded in impressing others. For it is not enough to carry the true poetic instincts within the recesses of one's soul. These have to be so faithfully mirrored in verse or prose as to carry the intelligent reader away, wherever the poet's fancy may wing its flight. So, Master is encouraging Sorabji Padshah not to keep these poetic instincts within himself. They are intuitions from the higher world, and they have already impressed so many people. The poetry that he wrote, so many people were very fascinated or impressed, affected by his words. And he should faithfully mirror those truths of higher world. That means he should express them in poetry or in prose in whatever way his fancy catches, whatever fanciful way he pleases. We know a poet can write anything, like he can compare the wind to the soul which is moving, or the flow of a river to the waters of life. So anything that his fancy catches, he should express it. His compositions, they are touching the souls, they are impressing themselves upon others. This Mahatmaji is assuring him. He says that I sent your poem after reading it myself to Mr. Sinnett, who was at one time considered in the London literary circles as one of the best critics of the day. Now we know that A.P. Sinnett was a lay chela of Master K.H. and probably Mr. Sinnett had a good understanding of poetry and literature. So, in keeping with the master's wishes, Sinnett had reviewed uh, Sorabji Padshah's poetry. He had critiqued it. And so, master says that writing for me and at my express wish, his opinion is thoroughly unbiased. And I believe the criticism is calculated to do you the greatest good. He tells Sorabji to take up the suggestion and work over the poem, for you may make of it something grand. So the review comments what Mr. Sinnett would have given him. He's asking him to take up that. So this is a learning for all of us. When somebody reviews what we have done or critiques our work, then instead of taking offense or ceasing to do whatever we are doing, our creative work, then one should examine those suggestions. Instead of getting offended, one should examine those suggestions which are offered through such kind of constructive criticism with an open mind. And sometimes it can really transform the work into something grand. This is Master's opinion also. Master says, bear with the world and those who surround you. So, bear with the world and those who surround you. It's a short statement but very powerful, which applies to all of us. See, the world and the circumstances and the people around us, they may not always be nice to us. Patiently enduring these challenging circumstances and the difficult people, but without anger, without getting anxious, without any desire for revenge. Okay, that represents mental strength. So that is how we have to bear all these circumstances of the world and the people around us. And this is exactly what is called titiksha. Titiksha is forbearance and tolerance. Okay, and this is one of the 6 virtues, the Shat Sampatti, which are part of the 4 qualifications of a disciple. So it is very important that we start cultivating them. Further, Master is saying, be patient and true to yourself. And fate, who was a stepmother to you, my poor young friend, may yet change and her persecutions be changed into bounties. So patience and what is patient and truthfulness. Be patient and be true. Patience is the virtue we all have to develop on the path of occultism. Path of occultism is not easy to follow. It is not easy to succeed on this path. So patience is very important. And the difference between success and failure is one more try. Try is the word Master has given us so many times in his letter. Okay, so that requires patience. It requires perseverance. And the other virtue which Master has spoken here is about being true to yourself. To be true to yourself, it means to follow your own inner voice. Your inner voice knows what is right and what is wrong. You can fool other people. You can try to convince them that no, whatever you are doing or saying, that is correct. But you cannot fool yourself. You cannot fool that inner voice which rises within you. So you have to be true to yourself. The heart knows. So perseverance and truthfulness, these are the 2 qualities which will ultimately pave the way to success on the path of occultism. And thus, your fate is of your own making. Fate is not written in stone. It is made out of your actions. It is of your own making, whether it treats you like a stepmother or provides you the bounty of success. So how your actions are, persevering, truthfulness, they will decide the fate. So this is another very important learning. And then Master ends this letter by saying, whatever happens, know I am watching over you. It is such a big reassurance to know that the Master is watching over us. It means His grace is always with us. We are under His care, under His protection. And it has another meaning also. The Master is watching over you, so you better not do anything wrong. Okay, better not cheat. Always be truthful and persevere on the path.
ये हमरो जनरल बॉडी जो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट फीस टा केते 8000 फाइनल होला ना केते होला ना ना जो गला जनरल बॉडी जोटा होला ना तमे
Okay. So we'll continue now. We'll move on to the next letter, number 78. This letter, it is dated 1882, and this letter is present in the Adyar archives. It was written by Master K.H. to a chela who was on probation. Master writes here, remember also the following. Adulterers distill a poisonous aura which inflames every bad passion and maddens their lust. Now, you see, this person, this candidate, he is a chela on probation. And what Master is instructing him? Jesus had mentioned the same thing. Everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery in his heart. That was what Jesus said. So, this is the meaning. The emotional and mental aura is poisoned. The crime is already committed in thought and feeling. Okay, if that intent is there. So, it is not necessary action only, but the mental and emotional intent. So, that aura, mental aura and emotional aura is already poisoned. The crime has already been committed. Master says, the only way to succeed is absolute separation, not a meeting, a sight from a distance, a word, or even a letter will I permit. So, this candidate, this chela who's on probation, this is Master's instruction to him. So, understand that there is a strange law in occultism. As soon as a candidate steps onto this path of occultism and enters as a probationer, then certain occult effects they ensue. The first effect is the throwing outward of everything that is latent in his nature. All his faults, habits, qualities, subdued desires, whether good or bad, everything will be thrown out, meaning it will come forward, it will get manifested. And the most efficient way to overcome any undesirable quality is to remove the object or the event of temptation, okay, which incites you into that undesirable quality. So remove that object or event of temptation. Therefore, for overcoming passion or lust, Master is insisting to the chela, not meeting or even seeing from a distance, or speaking or writing a letter. He warns that the moment you break either of these orders, you will have ceased to be my chela. That is a warning to him. Master says, to retain an old letter, a talisman, a keepsake, especially a lock of hair, is pernicious. It is harmful. It becomes a smoldering spark. You are in danger if you are in the same town or anywhere within accessible distance. So, as we already said, first step is to physically remove every opportunity of temptation. So, there should be no objects that serve as a reminder. Master is advising even the town of residence, it should be changed. You cannot trust your moral energy. For if you had had moral stamina, you would have fled the house at the moment when the first lustful thought tempted your loyalty. Stop then away from, under any pretext. See the importance of moral energy here. It is highlighted. This inner voice, it comes from that inner voice within us, which can distinguish the right from the wrong and one must learn to listen to this inner voice. But just hearing that voice, just knowing what is right and wrong is not sufficient. One has to act upon it. That is moral stamina. The mental will to the mental will to follow that inner voice and not to succumb to temptation. Okay, so that is moral energy, that is the moral strength, moral stamina. Now, for example, if many examples can be quoted from our Puranic stories. Often you would have read that a rishi or a great sage who is doing tapasya, who is sitting in meditation. So, Indra, who's the king of heaven, he is always afraid that this rishi is going to take away my throne because he is doing such great meditation and tapasya. So, he will send some celestial apsara to seduce the rishi so that his meditation is broken and he won't be able to attain that spiritual force or energy. But the rishis, they have great moral strength. They have great moral stamina. They are not seduced by that apsara, whoever is come to disturb or distract him. Okay. And that shows that even when one is surrounded by temptations, when he does not succumb to the temptation, that is moral strength. But here, Master has advised this candidate, he's on probation, so he's not spiritually so elevated. So he's saying that if you're surrounded by temptation, then you don't have that moral strength not to succumb to that temptation. Therefore, you better move away from all these things which can tempt you. Okay. It is said that even Lord Gautam Buddha, when he was nearing his enlightenment, he was tempted by Mara and he was able to overcome Mara and then he became enlightened. So that was his story also. Then we move to the next letter, letter number 79. Now this letter is dated probably early in 1884. It is a letter to T. Subbarao and it was written by the Master KH in transit. It is written on another letter to Subbarao. And that other letter, it was from Abraham D. Ezekiel. He was an Indian Hebrew who joined the society in 1882. And this letter, it is quoted in a letter which is in Adyar. That letter was to Mrs. I. Cooper Oakley from her husband, who was in Adyar in 1884. Okay. And in this letter, Master writes, the devoted student of Kabbalah doubts. Now, who's the devoted student? He is this Dr. Abraham D. Ezekiel. How many souls have been wrecked by that same sin? So here doubt means skepticism. It is skepticism regarding the existence of the masters of wisdom. Skepticism regarding the truth about the occult laws of nature. And in the early days of the Theosophical Society, many of the people had similar doubts. But actually, what is Theosophy? Theosophy does not encourage blind belief. It's not a dogma that you have to believe blindly. On the contrary, it invites man to study. It invites the person to explore the higher laws of nature so that he can ascertain the occult truths for himself. And then harmonizing himself with the higher laws, man can accelerate the progress of his soul. Okay, but what happens if the person doubts? A doubting mind creates a fundamental uncertainty. He's not certain regarding the inner laws of existence. And this becomes the biggest obstacle in the progress of the soul. You are doubting, you're not sure. Soul will not progress. The progress of the soul gets blocked. And that is why Master considers doubt as a sin. Doubt should be removed. It has to go. It is one of the early fetters on the path of initiation. Doubt is one of the early fetters which has to be removed. It can be removed by proper study and investigation. Okay. And if you cannot investigate by yourself, then better believe the word of the master. Okay, but don't block the progress of your soul. So doubt should be removed. Now, this Abraham, he is a mystic by birth, but his modern education has spoiled him. Master is writing to T. Subbarao. Now, this is true even to this day, modern education. Oh, modern education, it is based on materialism. It focuses on external knowledge. So, no doubt it will provide you with all technical expertise and logical skills, but it trains the student for material success only. Okay, it does not touch up at all upon the subject of spiritual growth. These laws of higher life, which are beyond the physical matter, they are altogether out of the purview or the range of this modern education. So, even if a child is naturally mystic, Master is saying that Abraham D. Ezekiel, he was a natural mystic. Even Madame Blavatsky was a natural mystic. What is the meaning of to be a natural mystic? It means that the person is born sensitive to the subtler worlds. He can perceive or he can have direct experience of the higher worlds. It is natural since birth. And by proper training, they can harness these powers for their own soul growth and also for the benefit of others. Okay, we know Madame Blavatsky had 7 years of training in Tibet, and then she was able to harness these powers of her, and the rest is legend. But what does modern education do? It spoils the prospect of this kind of outcome, this kind of soul growth. Okay, by teaching that there is nothing beyond the physical world. So that is why it is said that modern education is spoiling the natural mystic. And therefore, Master says, he, meaning Abraham, he should be given some insight about the masters and their connection with the society to make him a valuable member. Because he's a natural mystic, his capabilities can be used for the benefit of the society and the people. And he has to realize the truth about the masters. In the second part of this letter, Master is writing that a crisis is impending when some of the best members will lose their heads. So this is pertaining to the Coulomb conspiracy once again. And that Coulomb conspiracy, it came in the same year, just a few months later, in 1884. Is it? This letter is of which year? Yeah, 1884. So in the same year, a few months later, this Coulomb conspiracy transpired. And Madame Blavatsky, she was then accused by the Coulombs of fraudulently staging occult phenomena, producing those letters from the Mahatmas. And in that scandal which ensued, I'm sorry, there is electricity failure, so I will shut my video. So, so in the scandal of that Coulomb conspiracy, even some of the best members, they could not contain their doubt. And there was a decline in the membership of the TS because people started doubting Madame Blavatsky, especially in the West. Okay, so there was a substantial decrease in the number of members. So see what Master is saying here, that a crisis is impending. So he knew that a few months later this crisis will happen, the Coulomb conspiracy. Masters have the ability to know the future, and the future unfolds according to present actions. So Master is forewarning T. Subbarao about this impending crisis, and he advises Subbarao to take counsel at once with the best fellows and do not delay. Weed out all error with a strong hand. So once again, this is a important lesson for us. One should act swiftly and act firmly, and above all, act right. Right action, it depends as much on wise counsel from other fellows as on your own spiritual discrimination, Vivek. So it is good to take counsel, it is good to take advice from other fellows, but foremostly you must rely on your own spiritual discrimination, and then you should take swift action. Master says, You must help yourself first, and when you do so, other help will soon follow. So this is a clear indication in context of that Coulomb conspiracy, that if first the members themselves helped to diffuse that impending crisis of the Coulomb conspiracy, and they remained loyal to the society and to HPB and stood by her, they stood by HPB and by the truth of her occult phenomena. If they did that, then help from other quarters would also be provided. This is what Master is saying. So first help yourself. Have that courage to stand by her. Don't doubt her, don't desert her, and then other help will soon be provided. You see, it says that here what it means is that if you can discern the truth, so this is a lesson for us. If we can discern a truth and we show the courage to stand by that truth, even if everyone else is against us, then we will be helped by unexpected sources. That is Master's grace. Okay? Why? Because truth alone triumphs. Satyamev jayate. It is as it is said. There is a phrase which says that God helps those who help themselves. And this is exactly what Master is saying here. You must help yourselves first, and when you do so, other help will soon follow. Okay. So now this letter number 79 is completed, and we will move to our next letter number 80. So letter number 80 is from Master M to W.H. Terry. And it so happened that Madam Blavatsky had posted a letter on November 5, 1881 from Dehradun to Mr. W.H. Terry. Mr. Terry was the editor of Harbinger of Light in Melbourne, and he received it on December 12, 1881. In her letter to Terry, Madam Blavatsky had written that, will you kindly undertake to either forward the enclosed to the addressee or wait till the professor returns to Australia. So in her letter to Terry, she has input another letter which she wants Terry to send to that professor. I had a letter from him, that means from the professor, from Paris as far as I can remember, and lost it. It seems impossible for me to find it, and I do not find his address on the books, though I know Damodar wrote it down. Because she couldn't find the address, she had sent it to Terry and asked him to forward it to the professor. Now, in transit to Melbourne, this current letter, number 80, which is from Master M, it was precipitated at the foot of HPB's letter to Terry. Okay. And whether this professor was the Professor Smith, who is mentioned in next letter, letter number 81. So whether we are talking about the same professor, that is not very clear, but we will see when we go to the next letter, 81. Okay. And this current letter 80, it is there in Adyar. So in this letter, it's a very short letter. Master writes, for very good reasons, I beg leave to ask you the favor to first ascertain the whereabouts of the professor. I have some business with him and a promise to redeem. So Madam Blavatsky asks Terry to forward her letter to the professor. And Master has written that he wants Terry to ascertain the whereabouts of that professor. Where is he? Master is asking W.H. Terry to find out where the professor is. So it appears that the professor had made some promise to the master, and master wanted him to keep his promise, meaning to do as he had promised. And then master signs off the letter and he adds, misnamed the illustrious by Mr. Sinnett, though I be but a poor Tibetan fakir, private and confidential. Now, Mr. A.P. Sinnett in his narratives, he respectfully referred to Mahatma Maurya as the illustrious. although both the teachers were highly revered, Mahatma KH and Mahatma M, both of them were highly revered. But Senate referred to Mahatma Maurya as the illustrious, just to differentiate. And Master M, he was often perceived as the more stern, the more forceful of the two teachers, very commanding. Okay. So, and Mahatma Kutumi, Mahatma KH, he was always considered the gentle of the two. But Mahatma M says that I am but a poor Tibetan fakir, nothing illustrious. So that is why he says misnamed the illustrious. That completes letter 80. And we move to the last letter 81 of this session. There is one more letter 82 for a later session. This letter 81, now again in this, there is this professor mentioned in this letter, Professor John Smith. He is probably the same professor mentioned in letter 80, but it is not certain. Okay. So in this letter number 81, it is received on February 1 in 1882. Okay. The previous letter was of December 1881. Okay. So very close by, just within 2 months. This letter has been received in Bombay by Professor John Smith, CMG MLC of the University of Sydney. He arrived in Bombay on January 13, 1882, with a letter of introduction to the founders from Mrs. Emma H. Britton. Next day, he came and stayed at Crow's Nest. Crow's Nest, you would have come across this earlier. Crow's Nest was the nickname for the house in Bombay where the founders of the TS, that is Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott, they established their headquarters from 1880 to 1882. And only later on the headquarters were shifted to Adyar. Okay, they had come to India. They landed at Bombay in 1879 from New York. And then for these 2-3 years, 1880, 81, 82, they stayed at Bombay. That it was a 2-storied bungalow, which was called the Crow's Nest. And in the upper story, the Madame Blavatsky occupied it. She wrote over there. She received her guests and had meetings over there. And on the lower floor, that was occupied by Colonel Olcott. Okay, so that bungalow was called Crow's Nest. I'm not sure. I don't think it still exists, that building. So this person, Professor John Smith, he had arrived in January and he stayed at Crow's Nest. Then he went for a tour in North India and he returned to Crow's Nest on January 31st, so end of January. And then the following day, that is on 1st February after lunch, a precipitation took place and Professor Smith received this letter number 81. And the footnote also mentions that there is no record of any work, whatever this Professor John Smith did in Australia for theosophy. We don't know what he did. And the professor, he actually passed away. He died in 1885. Now, what Master writes in the letter to him, again, it's a very short letter. Master writes, no chance of writing to you inside your letters, but I can write direct. It doesn't, what does this mean? What is Master saying? See, this is actually referring to the occult way in which the letters were received from the masters. Okay, in many cases, only the master's words were precipitated mentally. So this was an occult process, how they were transmitted mentally through some of their high chelas, not even directly by the master. And those words which the master wanted, they precipitated inside a letter which was already in transit. Like in the previous letter, letter 80, it was a letter being written by Madame Blavatsky to Terry. And master's word appeared on the bottom margin of that letter. Okay, so the words were precipitated on a already existing letter which was in transit. Now, when this type of communication was not possible, then not only the words of the master, but the paper itself on which the word had to appear. So that paper itself had to be precipitated by an occult process. So you see twofold expense, the word which have to mentally come and also the material, the paper that has to precipitate. So that was the direct way in which this letter was received by Professor John Smith on 1st February 1882. Now, just a word about this precipitation of letter and these two ways, direct and indirect. So, if the paper is already existing and master just has to precipitate the words, obviously it will require lesser spiritual force to be expended. But if the master has to precipitate the words as well as the paper, then naturally it requires more spiritual force, because every occult process requires some spiritual force to be expended. And that is why, if you remember later on, the Mahachohan himself, he commanded that this process of communication should be stopped altogether. So after that, no more letters were precipitated. Okay. Now, what master wrote to this person, this Professor Smith, he said, work for us in Australia and we will not prove ungrateful, but will prove to you our actual existence. And thank you. And it is signed by Master M. So what was the work which master wanted him to do? Moreover, there is no record of any work which the professor did in Australia for theosophy, right? But what we know about this Professor Smith, that he had been appointed as the foundation professor of chemistry and experimental physics at the University of Sydney in 1852. Okay, and this letter is now in 1882. So he was a very, very senior professor. That too, professor of chemistry and experimental physics. And later on, he was appointed the Dean of Medicine. So he was also a man of medicine. So perhaps it is possible that the masters wanted him to work for them to help bridge the gap between modern science and occult science. Okay, master was also willing to prove to him that they actually exist. He was willing to prove this to the professor, but the professor passed away in 1885. So I think this collaboration, it could not take place. But this is a fact even today. The mainstream science and medicine, these fields, they require research with an open mind, and also they require some inspiration from the masters, so that this gap which is there between science and occult science, it can be bridged. And modern science, it can rediscover the truths which are already known to occult science. So this will prove of immense benefit to the entire humanity. And with that, we come to the end of this letter number 81, and we have completed the letters which were planned for today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vibhaji. Thank you. It was beautiful. Now I request Meenakshi ji to give the Hindi translation. Vibhaji, can you pin her, please? I had to exit and
Yes,
now I lost my hosting.
no problem. Meenakshi
सभी
ji.
को नमस्ते और थैंक यू सिस्टर। आज हम लेटर नंबर 77 से 81 ले रहे हैं। लेटर नंबर 77 यह पत्र मास्टर के एच सोराब जी जे पातशाह को लिखते हैं 1881 में। मास्टर कहते हैं कि निस्संदेह आपका मनोभाव काव्यात्मकता से पूर्णतः सराबोर है और आपकी अंतः प्रेरणा प्रकृति के सभी रहस्यों और गहराइयों को सहजता से भेदती है। अक्सर आपकी कविता को एक सुंदर शैली, सच्चाई और तालमेल देती है, प्रदान करती है। जहां तक मैं अंग्रेजी कविता का अंदाजा लगा सकता हूँ, एक खरा दृष्टा हमेशा एक कवि होता है और जब तक वह अंतस्वरूप से पूर्णतः एकाकार नहीं होता, तब तक वह कवि एक सच्चा कवि नहीं हो सकता। महान डैनिश कवि ने कहा है कि कवि यह अपने अंतर्बोध से काव्य रचनाकार होता है। आप दूसरों को प्रभावित करने में कितना सफल रहे हैं, यह आपको पता चले, इसके लिए मैं उत्सुक था, क्योंकि अपने अंतरतम में सच्ची काव्यात्मक प्रवृत्ति रखना ही काफी नहीं है। इन्हें काव्य या साहित्यिक रचना में इतनी प्रामाणिकता से उतारना होगा कि एक बुद्धिमान समझदार पाठक को वहां ले जाने में सक्षम हो जहां कवि की कल्पना ने उड़ान भरी हो। आपकी कविता को स्वयं पढ़ने के उपरांत मैंने मिस्टर सिनेट को भेजा, जिन्हें एक समय लंदन के साहित्यिकों में उस समय के सबसे श्रेष्ठ आलोचकों में से एक माना जाता था। मेरे लिए और मेरे ख्वाहिश पर लिखते हुए उनकी राय पूर्णतः निष्पक्ष है और मेरा मानना है कि उनकी समीक्षा आपके लिए बहुत लाभदायी होगी। उनका सुझाव लेकर अपनी कविता पर मेहनत करें, जिससे आप महान रचना कर सके। इस दुनिया और अपने आसपास के लोगों को सहन करो, धैर्यवान रहो और स्वयं के प्रति सच्चे रहो, और किस्मत जो आपके लिए पक्षपाती थी वह शायद बदल जाए और उसकी तकलीफें उपहार में बदल जाए। मेरे अभागे युवा मित्र, चाहे जो भी हो, यह जान लो आप मेरी निगरानी में है। अगला पत्र मास्टर के एच एक परीक्षाविधीन चेला को लिखते हैं। मास्टर कहते हैं, यह बातें ध्यान में रखें। व्याभिचारी लोग जहरीला माहौल फैलाते हैं जो हर बुरे जुनून को भड़काता है और उनकी वासना को उन्मत्त कर देता है। इससे उभरने का एकमात्र रास्ता है उस व्यक्ति से पूर्णतः विलग होना, न तो मिलना, न दूर से देखना, न एक भी शब्द या चिट्ठी की भी मैं इजाजत दूंगा। जिस पल तुम मेरे इन आदेशों को भंग करोगे, उसी क्षण से तुम मेरे चेला नहीं रहोगे। कोई पुराना खत, कोई ताबीज, कोई यादगार चीज, खासकर बालों का गुच्छा रखना नुकसानदेह है। यह सुलगती चिंगारी बन जाता है। अगर तुम उस व्यक्ति के शहर में हो या पहुंचने लायक दूरी पर कहीं भी हो, तब तुम खतरे में हो। तुम अपने नैतिक शक्ति पर भरोसा नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि अगर तुम में नैतिक मनोबल होता, तब तुम उसी पल उस घर से निकल जाते जब उस पहले विषयासक्त विचार ने तुम्हारी वफादारी को भरमाया ललचाया। इसीलिए उससे यानी उस व्यक्ति से किसी भी बहाने से दूर हो जाए। अगला पत्र मास्टर के एच का स्वामी टी सुब्बाराव को है, जो कि 1884 में उन्हें मिला था। मास्टर कहते हैं कि कब्बाला को समर्पित उस अभ्यर्थी अब्राहम को संदेह है। इस दोष के कारण कितने ही जीव बर्बाद हो गए हैं। अब्राहम जन्म से ही एक साधक है, लेकिन उसके नए शिक्षण पद्धति ने उसे बिगाड़ दिया है। उसे एक महत्वपूर्ण सदस्य बनाने के लिए उसे महात्माओं के बारे में और सोसाइटी से उनके संबंध के बारे में जानकारी देनी होगी। जब कुछ सदस्य अपने दिमाग का संतुलन खो देंगे, तब मुश्किल आएगी। यह कोलम दंपति के षड्यंत्र के बारे में है। तुरंत सबसे अच्छे साथी सदस्यों की सलाह ले और देर न करे। दृढ़तापूर्वक सभी त्रुटियों को दूर करे। सर्वप्रथम आपको अपनी मदद स्वयं करनी होगी और ऐसा करने पर जल्द ही अन्य मदद मिलेगी। अगला पत्र मास्टर HPB द्वारा WH टेरी को लिखित पत्र में मास्टर मौर्य का नोट है। मास्टर लिखते हैं कि किन्हीं बहुत अच्छे कारणों से मैं आपसे प्रोफेसर का पता लगाने की विनती करता हूँ। मुझे उनसे कुछ काम है और एक वादा पूरा करना है। आखिर में मास्टर लिखते हैं कि मिस्टर सिनेट ने मुझे इलस्ट्रियस महान उपनाम दिया है, हालांकि मैं एक गरीब तिब्बती फकीर हूँ। अगला पत्र लेटर नंबर 81 मास्टर M जॉन स्मिथ को लिखते हैं। आपके पत्रों में आपको लिखने का कोई अवसर नहीं है, लेकिन मैं सीधे सीधे लिख सकता हूँ। ऑस्ट्रेलिया में हमारे लिए कार्य करें और हम कृतघ्न साबित नहीं होंगे, बल्कि आपको अपनी वास्तवता साबित करेंगे। और आखिर में मास्टर उन्हें धन्यवाद कहते हैं। थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, Meenakshi ji. And now we open up for any additions or any questions. For me, this in this whole series, because each one was so different from the other, I really like the one in which that Jewish person has written to Subbarao, and Master says that this person is a good student of Kabbalah, but he has doubts. And I thought this part is so good because even if we are got so all this knowledge and all that, we can have that poisonous doubts about uh, the basics, the truth of all the occult truths, the basic truths of theosophy. So I thought that was, for me at least personally, I thought it was very useful to remember this.
Yes. Yes, no doubt he is blaming it on the modern education. Modern education,
Modernity.
yeah, it believes only
Yeah.
in the physical world. So, so even if those abilities are there in a person, they do not get a chance to grow because they are treated more as a kind of a abnormality. And parents
Yes.
will take the child to some psychologist or psychoanalyst to uh, suppress them or do away with them. But if proper
Yeah.
training is given to them, as was given to Madame Blavatsky, then you are really able to let those abilities blossom and make them useful, not only for your own self, but also for the entire mankind.
Yes. Also, this that letter to the unknown person about keeping away from temptation. Like
Hmm.
I think, for example, each person can look at what is the triggers they have. Like I have personally, I have a trigger for getting very emotional when I'm hurt. So if I'm hurt by somebody, I'll get very emotional. And I have seen that trigger happen like in childhood, and it's still there in adulthood. But the only difference is now I don't express, but it's all there inside. Call Rayandar. So then I realized that that is my what in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, he calls this type of thing combination of karma and samskar, and that word is vasana, which is something coming from past births, because I know that because even as a child I was like that. So I know that it is some tendency I have within me. So I think in this like temptation of when if in I expect a certain scenario where I could be hurt, I should be careful not to put myself in that situation where I would react. Sometimes it's easier, like here the master says, just leave this place, don't go anywhere near it, even in
Hmm.
this, don't stay in the same city, because you are likely to get even one tempting thought should not pass your head, otherwise you will lose chelasha. So same thing I also feel, sometimes it's better to protect yourself from temptation rather than to change that thing completely.
Right.
Ideally we would like to change it, but it may
Hmm.
not be always possible.
Yes. So this is exactly that the example which I gave now of those sages and saints. They have already developed their will, the strength of morality, moral stamina is the word I think Master has used. Right? That even
Huh.
if you're surrounded by temptations or by such situations, you will not
Hmm.
succumb to them. You will not react to them. But in
Hmm.
the case where you are still a probationer, you have just started on the path. Your moral stamina is not so strong. So the moment a temptation comes or a situation comes, you will fall prey to that situation. You will react. So that is why better to
Hmm.
keep away from the situation. But once you are elevated on the path, then we can expect that you may be surrounded by all of these temptations and situations, but they won't affect you.
And another thing which you mentioned about the Buddha, you had mentioned that even the Buddha had to face Maras.
Hmm.
This is something I have heard in another place, that
Hmm.
Buddha was the first Buddha who actually had to face Mara, because most of the other previous Buddhas had conquered all of it. This particular Buddha had still work on himself, so he had a lot of suffering and things to face, temptations and things to face, whereas the
Hmm.
previous Buddhas were not like that.
Hmm.
So this is also one thing.
Great. Any questions from the audience if they want to share their thought?
माधव माधव जी ज्वाइन किया.
Sir, Pradeep sir, you're saying something?
No, I am what Bimal ji is telling. All the previous Buddhas are from other planets. This is the only Buddha
From our present humanity.
who is fit enough to become Buddha. So all have faced the trial, all have faced the trial in their incarnation in different planets. But it also proved that Buddha at the stage of getting Buddhahood, means Gautama getting the position, they have to face the trial. So whenever you start your journey, means spiritual journey, occult journey, whatever name you can give. So every time and every moment, everywhere, every time, place, you will face the trial, temptation, whatever. There are many things we have to face in life. The more you advance in your spiritual journey, the more you will face the karma, because karma is to be exhausted. Then only you will be more fit enough or more fit enough to help their work. In letter number 81, there is some work for us in Australia. And we will not prove ungrateful. Even today, those who are working for the humanity through Theosophical Society, they are slowly, steadily advancing. Means their consciousness is expanding in many ways. And they are also facing the karmas in their life. Very interesting matters.
Sure, right. So,
I just want to say that Mara
and
Maya are the same.
Sheetal ji, namaste.
Namaste.
Yes, Sitalji.
Yeah, what? Maya and Mara? No, they
All
are
are
Are not same.
They are not same. Please rephrase your question. Please repeat your question for the benefit of everyone.
Yes, Maya. I felt that Mara and Maya are the same. We are entangled in either Mara or Maya.
See, Mara is it encompasses a very broad set of what we can say obstacles that a person has to face on the path of occultism. It is said that when Buddha was nearing enlightenment, he had to face so many temptations from Mara. So it is not just this temptation of lust, it includes desire, death, delusion. Desire meaning all the desires of the senses. There are 5 senses. So any desire of those senses. When we say death, it includes the obstacle of fear. The biggest fear is fear of death. Are you still attached to your body, to your personality? You're on the verge of enlightenment, but are you still attached to this body that it is going to die? So that is fear of death. It is said that there were raging storms and thunder and lightning and a lot of things which Buddha had to face. So that was the fear of death, that you will die. Okay. And the third is delusion. The illusion that all these virtues which you have gathered, which are enable or giving you, making you deserving of enlightenment. Who is witness to that? So it is said that when Mara put forth this question to Buddha, that who is witness to your virtues, that you have attained this qualification and for enlightenment. So he touches the earth. He asks Mother Earth to be his witness for his virtues. You see that many of the statues of Buddha, they have this his hand going out, touching the earth. So some of the statues are like that with his mudra like that, and some statues are where he's touching the earth. So Mara is all these obstacles of desire, death, delusion, fear. That is what is Mara. Mara. Okay. Maya is something totally different. Maya is a material energy. It is the energy of delusion. Okay. The biggest Maya is that there is no separation. You are Brahma. You are one right now. But you are seeing everything is different, everything is separated. That is Maya. That is illusion, or rather delusion. Okay, mind is under this delusion. It is slaying the reality. So why that reality is getting slayed? It is because of Maya. Okay. Sheetali?
Yes.
Any other question?
Thank you, ma'am. Very big confusion you have removed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Even illusion will go in the last stage. When in your Atmic plane and expecting means last incarnation, last that is the adept, fifth initiation. At that time, you will last illusion is you are separate. You and rest is a separate. That was that stage illusion will go. And
Yes.
Mara is a Buddhist term. Temptation, you rightly pointed. Temptation, death, fear, all this coming under the Mara.
Yes.
And illusion is another thing.
Mhm.
So what we call in our text, Mara? In Hindi, what we will call it?
Hindi, what you will call Mara.
Brahm?
As we just explained, Mara are the obstacles on the path of
Obstacle.
enlightenment.
Yes.
They are all the obstacles, whether they are obstacles of desire or of fear or of doubting. Okay, they are all obstacles.
In Hindi, you can call it Klesh.
Klesh.
Clay
Yeah.
or Bedi. Yeah?
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Klesh are given in that Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, and I see Vimalji is smiling there. Klesh
Yeah.
are altogether, see, they begin with what is it? Avidya,
Asmita,
Asmita, Avidya,
Rag, Dvesh,
and
Abhinivisha.
Yeah. So they are beginning with avidya. First of all, you are under this delusion. That is avidya. Because you have considered yourself separate from the one reality. That is the avidya.
Okay, we will close.
Yes. Thank you so much, Vibhaji, and very interesting discussion. Thank you, all the participants. And let's all join together in the closing prayer. Om Asato Ma Satkamayam Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamayam Mrityorma Amritam Gamayam Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhavet Om Shanti